If you understand this one process from science, failing as a freelance designer becomes almost impossible. And in this video, I will show you exactly how you can apply it to your business. If you want real growth and a deeper understanding, this video is for you. Why listen to me? If you don't know me, I've been designing since around 2004, and I've designed for award-winning agencies, big brands like Amazon, and even people like Beyonce. But more importantly, my students and I are making real money consistently by applying these systems. The process is called scientific method, and it probably sounds familiar to you, especially from science class, but here we will talk about how it can be applied to freelancing. So what is the scientific method exactly? The scientific method is a simple cycle of testing an idea, seeing what works, and improving based on results, okay? And here are the different components that form the scientific method. We have the question, what you want to figure out basically, the problem you are trying to solve or understand. And then we have the hypothesis, a clear idea or assumption you want to test. It's your best guess about what might work, right? And then we have the experiment, the action you take to test that idea. You try something specific to see how it performs. And then we have the result, what actually happened. You study the outcome to understand what worked and what needs improvement. And then we have the refinement. You adjust your approach based on what you learn, change one variable and test again. Only one variable. And I will talk about that in a second. And then we have the outcome. And basically, when you repeat the experiment, you will reach mastery, okay? And that's exactly why the scientific method is very powerful. Now, I will talk about the origins of the scientific method, and, because I want you to understand where it came from, and also, why if you apply it, it will be almost impossible for you to fail as a freelance designer. So we can trace some foundational components of the scientific method to ancient Greece, right? Greek philosophers used systematic reasoning and formal logic to explain the natural world. And they could think brilliantly, but they rarely tested if they were right. So modern science adds the crucial step, experiment and refine continuously. Greek philosophers like Socrates, for example, did not experiment in a scientific way. Instead, he used, like intellectual methods to get his point across. And we know that not because he wrote books, but because the knowledge and insight that Plato passed to us, okay? So around 1000 or 1100 years approximately after the Greek philosophical era, we have the Islamic Golden Age. And the Islamic Golden Age introduced systematic experimentation and real-world testing as central to understanding nature. And this is a very, very interesting and crucial era for the future of science. Because during this era, mainly thanks to Ibn al-Haytham, we got the scientific method that we know today. Ibn al-Haytham was a pioneering Islamic scholar that basically laid the foundations for scientific experimentation. And he wrote the book of optics, and this is one of the books that shaped modern science. I know that this sounds more like a science or history class, but there is a reason for it, okay? If you apply the scientific method to your freelance business, failing becomes almost impossible. So stay with me. So, of course, when talking about the Islamic Golden Age, we can't forget about North Africa and the Empire of Mali. Across Africa, the Islamic world, and Europe, scholars were developing systematic ways of thinking. In places like North Africa and Timbuktu, mathematicians and astronomers made crucial contributions to the body of knowledge that eventually shaped the Renaissance. What I'm teaching you has a very strong foundation, as you can see. So it's smart to use a strategy that basically been effective for more than 1,000 years, especially if it's a framework that basically shaped modern science. You can't go wrong with that. If you are wondering what Timbuktu is, Timbuktu was a historic city that served as an intellectual center of the Mali Empire, okay? And this was, during the Middle Ages in Africa. During the European Renaissance and scientific revolution, people like Da Vinci, Newton, and company basically took the scientific method to the next level. So the Greeks planted the seed, Al-Haytham and other Islamic scholars introduced experimentation, and then the Renaissance and the scientific revolution refined it into the scientific method we know today. In nature, lions, for example, feel emotion, but emotion doesn't stop them from acting. They don't overthink, they don't hesitate, they don't question themselves. They act, fail, adjust, and try again. The average young lion doesn't become a good hunter on the first try, right? It starts with a simple idea. When they go hunting, they think something like this: if I get closer without making noise, I might catch the prey. Obviously, lions don't sit and form hypotheses, so this is just a metaphor, okay? So the question would be, can I get close enough to catch the prey? And then we have the hypothesis: if I approach quietly, I can catch the prey. And then we have the experiment: the lion stalks and tries different approaches. And then we have the result: the prey runs or stays, depending on the tactic. And then we have the refinement: the lion adjusts its angle, timing, and speed. And then the outcome: repeated experiments lead to mastery. And this is how lions basically get, become very good at hunting. Humans, on the other hand, fail because we let emotions interrupt the learning loop. So basically, lions improve by running instinctive experiments, and then freelancers by running conscious experiments. This is the main difference. As I said before, lions don't sit and form hypotheses, okay? It's basically automatic. Humans have emotions that interfere with action. So we avoid tasks because of things like fear of rejection, overthinking, shame, procrastination, self-doubt, or ego, okay? Now I will show you an example on how to apply the scientific method when sending cold emails. So we have the question: can cold email outreach get good prospects? And then we have the hypothesis: if I send this email with this offer to this niche, I will increase my discovery calls. And this is not definitive, okay? This is something that basically you guess. And then you experiment. You send 100 emails, keeping everything constant except the variable you are testing. And you have to test only one variable at a time. And then after the experiment, you have the result. You measure opens, replies, and calls booked, right? And then you go through the refinement process. You adjust the subject line for a sentence, offer, or niche based on what worked and what did not. And then you have the outcome. Repeated experiments lead to mastery. So the scientific method is fundamentally a feedback loop. Trial and error is the law of nature. The early universe, animals, ecosystem, evolution, everything improves through variation, feedback, and refinement. The scientific method is simply the conscious, structured version of what nature has been doing forever. This is how you apply it to your outreach efforts. So let's say you start an email campaign, okay, cold email campaign. So you have 3 sprints, and this is how I like to approach it. Sprint 1 is basically month 1, sprint 2 is month 2, and then sprint 3 is month 3. So we organize it in 3 months, okay, per campaign. And then during each sprint, you only test one variable. And don't worry, because I will talk about the variables in a moment. And then after you experiment and then you get the result, it's time to start campaign number 2, which is going to be the refinement based on the data that you got from campaign number 1, okay? And during campaign number 2, you do the same thing, the same process, and then you move to campaign number 3. And then again, the same process, and then you move to campaign number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like you keep going. The real progress happens when you stop letting emotions guide your decision and you stick to the cycle. Test, refine, test, refine, test, refine, okay? If you stay consistent with that, you will eventually reach the result you want. Here's an example. So during campaign number 1, targeting was off, all right? So we did not get many replies. And then during campaign number 2, we improved targeting and increased reply rate by 50%. Amazing. And then during campaign number 3, we refined the messaging and offer close 2 clients in 3 weeks. If you follow this process and don't act based on emotions, it's going to be almost impossible for you to fail, okay? And this is something that a lot of beginners and even pros don't understand. It doesn't matter how good you are as a web designer. Your websites could be like the best, design websites in the world, or like you could have like amazing visual skills and stuff like that. If you don't apply this consistently, it's going to be very difficult for you to get clients consistently. Inside of the Elite Group, my group mentorship program, we use this idea in order to achieve excellence. So right here in the classroom section, we have these trackers, all right? We have the life balance tracker, and then we have the progress tracker. The life balance tracker is designed to improve key areas of your life. So we basically approach this idea like athletes. I'm not going to go too much in detail, but each student basically tracks their habits and performance, okay? Every single day, right? And this helps a ton in terms of accountability, because what you don't track, you can't measure. And then we have the progress tracker, right? And thanks to this tracker, I can track the progress of each student. I provide them with a proven roadmap and then guide them through every single step. And of course, I provide them with a custom outreach tracker. By using this tracker, we apply the scientific method and then we take things to the next level. So why all this makes failing almost impossible? Focusing back on client acquisition, when you improve each campaign based on data, every cycle gets you closer to success, okay? Targeting gets sharper, messaging becomes clearer, your offer gets stronger, your angles get better, your reply rates increases, your confidence grows, and your results compound. And this doesn't only apply to client acquisition, okay? It applies to habits, performance, and so on. And the fact is, after enough cycles, it becomes harder to fail than to succeed. And always remember, nature evolves through trial, feedback, and adaptation, okay? And freelancing works the same way. The market is your environment, and the scientific method is your conscious way of adapting to it. Here are some of the variables you can test when sending cold emails, and you have to make sure that you test one variable at a time, okay? Remember that. So these are the components: the offer, the subject line, the opening line, the email body, the CTA, the follow-ups, and the timing, all right? I've prepared this comprehensive document with many more variables you can test, okay? You will find the link in the description. Now you might be thinking, this sounds like it will take forever, testing all these variables and stuff. Actually, it's the opposite. You are going to send emails anyway. You are going to make changes anyway, right? So the scientific method just makes sure you significantly increase your chances to succeed. All right, I will leave a link in the description to a free course where I teach you how to get web design clients step by step. And if you want more support and personal guidance, you can book a free strategy call with me. Whether you are a beginner, you are trying to switch careers, or you are an experienced designer, we look at your current situation, your goals, and see if my group mentorship program is a good fit for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.